Hey, somebody's got to throw away the speech on goal setting. You have? Excellent. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. You are listening to the Professional Noticer. Here, you and I will use common sense and all the wisdom we can muster to move beyond what is true and go all the way to the truth. With actual listeners in more than 100 countries, I am the Professional Noticer. Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Andrews. Hey, thank you for making me a part of your week. My purpose here today and with every show we do is to play the part of a best friend or coach. I want to help you live the life of your wildest dreams by giving you access to some of the greatest mentors the world has to offer today. This week, the Professional Noticer is sponsored by Tucker ATV. Our friends in Jackson, Alabama, Highway 43 North. Now, you may say, what in the world is a company with listeners in more than 100 countries? How in the world can they be sponsored by a small town business? Well, let me just tell you something. Number one, these are the most awesome people you ever met. Shannon and Lisa Tucker, Tucker ATV. They're at Highway 43 North in Jackson, Alabama. This is a small town business, yes, but it has a national reputation. Can you imagine a business that sells all the Polaris vehicles, all the Echo power tools, the Hustler lawn equipment, and yet this place has become a destination. And they have had clients, customers, people who work with him from 14 states. This is not on an interstate, but the place is just a pleasure to visit, to see what's going on. There's taxidermy, there's antiques, there's Shannon and Lisa. You know, check them out on the Facebook page and read what Lisa writes. She's very funny, and Shannon's such a great guy. But we love them here at the Professional Noticer. Shannon and Lisa Tucker, Tucker ATV, the small town business with the national reputation. Observations and answers, that's what we do here on the Professional Noticer. And sometimes we bring in somebody who has great observations. Sometimes we bring in somebody who has answers. Today, we bring in somebody that I'm afraid of. When you look at these books, I just grabbed 5 of these books off our shelves here in Wisdom Harbor Studios. And there is, I'll tell you which 5. Baseball Boys and Bad Words. Definitely the funniest thing I've ever written. Bottom of the Pool. That's the one that Forbes said is one of the 7 books business entrepreneurs must read. The Little Things, Why You Really Should Sweat the Small Stuff. Tales from Sawyerton Springs. It's out of print, but it's still one of my favorite things I've done. And the newest one, Just Jones. Sometimes the thing is impossible until it is actually done. By the way, if you haven't reviewed this and you want to give it a 5-star review, please go on Amazon and review it. If you think less of it than a 5-star, please just forget, okay? We're very excited about our guest today, but he is the answer to what these 5 books have in common. Each of these books has as a character in the book our guest, the old man, Kevin Perkins.
Hey,
Kevin.
buddy.
Hey, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing well. I appreciate you having me.
You would not believe how many times people have asked me, Kevin Perkins, the guy you say is your best friend, he's down the books, is he real? I have as many people ask me if you're real as they do ask me if Jones is real.
That's right. And I think you were doing the audio book for one of the last books, and
right.
I guess it was Bottom of the Pool, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You called me, and I think
that's exactly right. Because we're on the notes at the end of the book. Yeah.
You tried to call me, and I called you back, and there he is.
There he is.
But anyway,
yep, the real Kevin Perkins. And so you happened to be over today, and I said, you know what? I'm taking this opportunity. This is going to be a great, great podcast episode.
I appreciate you thinking so.
Well,
I've enjoyed everything you've done for years and years and years, and relived a bunch of it myself.
You've probably struggled through a lot of it.
Well, lived some of it.
Yeah.
which is cool.
That's very true. I mean, there is nobody. I don't think there's anybody except maybe Polly that I have as many shared experiences with.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. I mean, and I had somebody tell me the other day, they said, "How long have you known Kevin?" And I said, "Since I was a senior in high school and he was in the 10th grade." And they said, "Were you guys best friends then?" I said, "Like immediately."
And it's crazy. I have the same. There are certain things that happen in your life that you can pinpoint the exact day, year, month that things happen. And I knew exactly when you and I met. It was a Friday night. It was a Friday night before dove season opened in Mississippi, which is traditionally September 1st or 2nd. Right. And a guy called me up that I was going to hang out with that night and said, "Guess what we're going to get to do tonight?" And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "We get to take the new preacher's kid out." And I was like,
oh, great.
Yeah, because every preacher's kid that I'd actually been around was either coming out of probation or about to go into seminary. There was very little middle ground there.
Right.
And so we picked you up, and shortly thereafter we dumped him. And the next day we were dove hunting together, and we've been running together ever since. And eating lunch every day. And
yep.
In high school, which was cool, and sharing those experiences with you, which was great. And it was a brand new high school for you, and you were just ready to get out.
Yeah. I was telling Polly and the boys the other night about, when you and Glenda got married, it was before, it was like a couple or 3 years before Polly and I got married. When you and Glenda got married, I was like the third. I was the third musketeer, the third Stooges, and I still remember some of the things that you and Glenda would like yak at each other about, and I thought was so funny.
And now?
Yeah, they're still kind of funny. And of course, we still say to each other at our house, "Is that funny to you, Glenda?
Is that funny? Yeah.
Because Glenda, for those of you who don't know Glenda's kind of like, we always say Glenda's kind of like Aunt Clara on Bewitched. Glenda's ooh, and she'll get the jokes like 15 or 20 seconds later, or maybe an hour later, Glenda will just like die laughing over there, and we'll look at her and go, what's up, Glenda? And she goes, "I just understood what y'all were talking." And it's like, oh my gosh.
And it's so funny. And just a disclaimer real quick, let's make sure that we let everybody know that Polly and Glenda are both saints.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They have put up
with us.
Put up a lot of shenanigans here.
It's funny because I think back to when you had hair, and
that was a while back.
Yeah, I mean, somebody asked me the other day, "Why do you call Kevin old man?" And I said, "Well, we've been calling him old man since the 10th grade because that's when he started losing his hair."
That's right. I love to watch people squirm when they come in. They say, "I know you're pulling your hair out," and I went, "That ship sailed in 1983." So anyway.
Oh my gosh! And so you went. Now have you met Roland back here?
I did. Yeah.
Okay. Do you know Roland? He's kind of new here. He's probably new to you,
right?
And Roland went to Mississippi State
for
undergrad, which is where you went, and then he went to Ole Miss for law school, which is kind of odd. I mean, to me, that's like somebody going to Alabama and Auburn.
Well, it's having obviously lived both places. Alabama and Auburn is, let's just say, vicious.
Yeah. Well, Sports Illustrated said that's the number one rivalry in America.
There is a very defined line between, it's love or hate.
Right.
And Mississippi, and this is my experience, and I know people have all kinds of experiences, but, Mississippi State, we'd have our home game and we'd go to Ole Miss and go to their parties at night.
Right.
I had so many friends in both places, and it was kind of a toss-up as to where I was going to go. But, obviously I landed in Mississippi State which was where I was supposed to be, with the right people.
Yeah.
And it's funny how God weaves this tapestry in our lives of all these things and places, and we don't know his hand is moving, right? But all of a sudden we look back and we go, if I hadn't have met him, this wouldn't have happened. And so it's real cool how all of that kind of just pans out.
Yeah, man, that's so great. We of course, when I think of us being in high school together and think that was 1 year, it just kind of freaks me out. We packed a lot into a year. There's a lot of memories.
I know you don't remember. And I think I don't know if it was Glenda. I was talking about how many Andy Andrews shows have I actually seen? And she's like, oh my. And I said, I saw him on stage at high school, and I don't know if this was a talent show or whether it was a...
Well, I won $10.
Yeah, high school talent show, so. You didn't spend it all in one place either because I was there. But anyway, you stepped out on stage and you had those plastic champagne glasses all tied together with fishing line.
Right.
And you had it hung around your neck, and you walked out on stage and you stood there, and the kids started to laugh a little bit, and you went, that's right, I wear glasses. and the whole place just goes nuts. And then you said, well, I've got it figured out now, contacts, and you held your hand up and you had the bottom of those champagne glasses tied to a string, 3-inch disc, clear hanging from your arm, and the place just goes nuts.
Would anybody have thought that was the beginning of I guess, a career?
It's been a long, hard climb to the middle.
It's a long, hard climb to the middle. That's exactly right. Good grief. But you're right. And you've seen you've been with me. Every single stage of what I've done. I've been to every stage of what you've done. I mean, I never will forget when you were the materials manager at Kerr McGee.
Uh-oh.
And you're the warehouse manager of this whole thing. And there's, I don't know how many people, working under you. Mm-hmm, but I remember you coming to me one time and saying, and you know how we say that the people you hang around are the big part of who you become. And I said, right. He said, I just realized I must not be hanging around good people. I said, why do you say that? He said, because I realized the other day that of all the people who work in the warehouse, I'm the only one who doesn't know what it feels like to be shot.
Oh, we had, when you're working a night shift and you've got all these guys, and when a guy has his wife calls in and says, he won't be in to work tonight, I shot him. That's just highly unusual.
Yeah.
Or it was to me. It was real nonchalant then, and of course we had to ask him about it when he came back, and he's sitting there and he said, so Levi, why'd your wife shoot you? And he said, well, we got into an argument the night before, and I went on to sleep, and I woke up the next morning, and she was sitting in the chair next to the bed rocking. She just rocking back and forth. And I looked up and I said, you need to get in there and cook me some breakfast. And she opened fire.
Oh, my God.
So anyway, but just great stories and great people. And enjoyed.
Polly and I still, every now and then, Polly and I, at some point, I'll say, get in there and make me some breakfast. She'll look around like she's looking for a gun. But, oh, my gosh, yeah, just great stories. And I was looking the other day, here Judson is married with a baby. And I've got the picture in my office at home of, remember, I got in a boat. It was like the first boat. And, I always like, you and I are always like, if I got something, that means we both got something.
Right.
And so.
It's kind of all the way it's always been.
Yeah. And so remember going to Sam's Stop and Shop there in Orange Beach and buying rods, and then going back to the house and putting these rods. We had good rods for the first time in our life. And we put them in this nice place, and we'd hammer nails to hang them all parallel to each other. And I've got the picture of you and me looking out of that rod room with those rods behind us, and little Judson's face looking out about knee high.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
You know, and I think back earlier, earlier.
When I was living in the trailer?
Yeah.
That was before I was living on the beach.
Motorcycle trailer early. I remember always, even then, finding little bright spots. You know, there was a rotted hole in the floor in the kitchen, and you said, this works out pretty good, and he could sweep his floor and into that hole. Of course, you'd look underneath the trailer, and there'd be a mound.
No, I didn't even have to open up I didn't have to open the door to sweep it out.
I remember us selling fish, buying an ice chest so we could carry more fish.
Yeah.
And if it hadn't have been for my dad's credit card, none of it would ever happen.
Oh, my God.
And I'm just telling you, he never said a word about it.
Wow.
And you know we ran some gas through that boat. So anyway, you know, again, divine.
Never said a thing about it.
Divine guidance.
What a great, I guess, a great influence. What a great example for you, because I've certainly said stuff about gas on my credit card.
Yeah, right. Well, you know, and we've, you know, Haywood is my dad, who fell out of the top of the Christmas tree in Sawyerton Springs.
Right. He was also the attorney in Just Jones,
right,
Haywood.
Right. And so there's a lot of things, like I mentioned, that we've lived a lot of these things that are actually in the book, even though it's, you know, we've got all of these characters that, you know, the names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Yeah.
You know, it's just spectacular that we have gone through this process together and seen these people and different events show up in the books. Which
Speaking of names changed to protect the innocent, we won't say this name, but do you remember the kid we branded in high school?
We threatened to brand him, by the way.
Well, he thought we branded him.
Well, you know, there's that. We were.
He did. He thought we branded him.
He did, because we. Oh my! You know, if my parents had.
And you're poor. You want me to tell it?
Both of my parents are gone now, so.
Yeah, but as we tell this story,
my son's
your
going,
parents,
geez, I could have got away with something.
Yeah, your parents. Well, you can't now, Judson. Right. You can't now,
right?
Because now the stuff your daddy and I did, they arrest you for it now.
Right. I mean,
if we had gotten caught, they'd have called our parents. Now they call the police.
Right. That's right. Well, I just.
And there's game cameras. Everybody's got cameras everywhere. But I mean, we had this group of guys, and we would hang out, and other people wanted to get in the club, and when we found out they wanted to get in the club, we didn't know we had a club, but we thought, you know, what's a club if you can't keep somebody out?
That's right.
And so, but then we thought, well, we could have somebody in, but we'd have to initiate them, and so what happened is that I don't know, I think my mom was out of town, something. I don't know where my parents were at that point, but I remember you made a brand out of a coat hanger, right?
I did.
And it had a G on it for a gator, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then you formed this paper mache gator as the handle, okay? And then it goes down the brand to a G. And the G was about as big as your fist, all right? And so this kid, we told him, we kind of slapped ourselves on the butt and we said, if you're going to be a part of what we do, everybody gets one of these. And he, broke out in a sweat right there. There's 5 or 6 of us standing around and we said, but, we're not going to force you or anything, but if you're going to be a part of what we do, everybody gets a brand on their butt.
Right.
And so, so he I still can't believe he said yes. Yeah, but he did. He said,
we walked him by that brand and it was smoking.
"Oh yeah, we had that brand in fire. I mean, there was a gas flame because we were in the kitchen and had this gas flame, and that brand was red hot in that gas flame. And we walked by there and said, just lay face down on the floor and pull one of those cheeks out, and do you want us to hold you? You want somebody to hold you? And he said yes. And I remember, I don't remember who it was, but I remember a couple of guys held him, but he wanted him to, right? And
well, there's a split second between skin contact that you can't distinguish between hot or cold.
Right.
And so we had that saucepan in the freezer
that
had been sitting in there for a while. And so we slipped over and grabbed that saucepan.
When he went face down on the floor and we said, "Bring me the brand," he has his face in the carpet, right?
Right. I mean, and we touched him with that frozen pan, and
he come up off that floor.
He came out of his skin. So anyway, obviously we weren't malicious. And none of us.
We were malicious, but there was no lasting damage.
We weren't going to hurt anybody.
Yeah, we weren't going to hurt anybody. But there were times then where, other people would see Kevin and me together, and they would point out Kevin, and they said, "See that kid right there?" Pointing at me, and they'd say, "Now you see the other kid," and they'd say, "That one is his conscience." I said, Kevin Perkins hangs out with that kid because he's the only conscience that Andrew's boy has. And I would call Kevin. I remember specifically calling you one time and saying, "Oh man, listen, I got an idea. I'm gonna come pick you up." And you went, please don't do this to me. Please don't. Because
there's been a lot of those please don'ts.
Lord.
And some of them I caved into and some of them I didn't. But the ones I caved into made wonderful stories that we remember to this day.
I remember Ms. Perkins, your mom, saying to Glenda, and I was like 40, and she said to Glenda, "Well, it looks like Andy is going to turn out okay, doesn't it?" I'm 40. It took you that long to figure out?
And I'd have looked at her and I'd have gone, I don't know, Mom. I need to watch him a little closer.
Oh, my gosh.
But,
What was the worst trouble you got into when you like in high school? Do you remember?
Oh, yeah. And this, in today's standards, is so benign. I mean, we blew up some mailboxes with fireworks.
Right, yeah.
And we were, Alan, we were at his grandfather's.
Which he watches the blue plate sometimes.
Hey, Alan. But we were blowing up mailboxes, and his granddaddy's mailbox just happened to be one of them.
Uh-oh.
And the person, whoever that got their nose bent out of joint, I don't think we did anything to their mailbox. But he said, there's some kids out here that are blowing up these mailboxes, and I'm sure that Mr. McDonald will be happy to press charges. Well, Mr. McDonald was Alan's granddad.
Oh, great.
And so nothing really happened other than me getting a stern talking to about,
about a federal crime.
About a federal crime interfering with the mail or something.
Right.
That nature, which at that time I was like, okay, well, but we were little. It wasn't, but I was really the kind of other kids were doing the drinking thing, and I was, and all my buds were cool with all that. That I didn't go out and and do
that was me too. I didn't either.
I was their ride home, which they were, they were thankful for that.
Right.
So having a guy that could go with them and hang out and drink a Coke while they did whatever they were going to do, and made sure they got home okay was a
Right.
great thing. And I had incredibly good friends growing up in Columbus, Mississippi, and we just had a real unique bond, and it's a unique bond to this day. There's still a lot of us that still keep in contact with one another, even from those early times.
Yep, absolutely.
Which again makes our relationship a little bit more unique in today's world. But
I remember there was a text I was on with you and Tricia not too long ago, and got to see this, be reminded of the prom night.
That's right.
Because my mom was in the hospital.
Right.
And, she was getting kind of on the last days there. And so you and Tricia went to the prom together, both of you dressed in baby blue. and you went by the hospital before you went to the prom to see Mom and let Mama see y'all, and I've always remembered that. I always thought that was just so cool. But there's another bond that you and I have in that you knew my mom and dad.
I did.
Polly didn't. Polly never even met my parents, and
being in the youth choir with your dad and your mom in the same room, you had the straight man on the piano. And then your dad.
The crazy person.
And so it was a great dueling, relationship there that the kids just purely just soaked up. And your mom and dad were dear to so many people, especially me.
Yeah.
And Tricia.
You were with me the night Mama died.
Yeah.
Because I remember us coming out of an apartment and seeing Daddy over across the street, and Daddy started walking toward us, and you and I were together, and I said, "Uh-oh," and I just knew, and so.
And I called you the night my dad died.
Yep.
And I was with you when my mom died.
Yeah.
In St. Augustine.
St. Augustine.
So we shared some laughter, some joy. Our kids were born, and with one of us being in the waiting room, or the other,
for the other, both, all of them, just amazing. If there is one thing, I'm gonna go ahead and close this out because you and I mean, we'll shut the camera down, and then you and I are going on to the house, and we'll continue talking, and we'll talk until you leave, and then we'll pick up right where we left off next time we see each other, and. So you just got to pick a time to cut it off because we could tell stories, and I mean, just we have so many. But if there's one thing that I could wish into Joseph and Judson and Adam and Austin's life, is that somewhere along the line they find a friend like I found you, and. That they have
I feel the same way.
Have a lifelong friend, somebody who is has the guts enough to call them out and has the wisdom to do it the right way. And
the last thing we want is to give a misconception that everything was perfect and rosy. And
I mean, I was perfect, but
except for that time in 89
in the 1900s.
No, but anyway, we're so blessed to have each other and to be able to undergird each other during hard times and to be able to look you in the eye and say I love you and not think anything weird about it.
Yep. I asked Austin and Adam one time. I said, have you noticed that I I mean, are you aware? I guess I hope it comes across that I honor Kevin with what I do. And they said, oh yes, sir. I said, do you understand why? I mean, do you understand what that is? I mean, this is a guy who was in my life when my parents were alive. He was there when they passed. He was there after they passed away. He was there during my toughest times. And there was that, you nicely did not mention a few minutes ago when you talked about us selling fish. I mean, this was when I was, either living in the trailer or I had lost the trailer and was living, sleeping on the beach half the time. And we would sell those fish, and we used the first money we sold fish from to get a couple of those big monster ice chests. And then we would sell the fish, but Kevin would always make me take all the money. And Kevin always bought the meals. And, Kevin and Haywood paid for the gas, and Kevin got the bait. And then we'd sell the fish, and Kevin make me take the money. And so I always said back then that if I ever got into a position where I could pay for somebody's meal, Kevin Perkins was never going to pay for a meal with me again. And as far as I know, you have only paid for one. Do you remember where it was?
I do.
You do? Yeah.
I do. It kind of chills my blood right now.
I will never forget that.
You want to go ahead and tell them?
Yeah. I mean, this will be our last story, but
okay.
I forget. We decided for Christmas one year that Kevin and Glenda and Paul and I, we would give each other 2 nights in New Orleans together. We would get a suite at a hotel. I think we got a suite at the Sheraton, and we would,
which was awesome.
It was awesome. We would play some games in the middle part. That was when Glenda and I were just the Pictionary champions, and we really were.
They're cheaters.
We did not cheat. We were the best Pictionary, and Polly and Kevin would say that we cheated. We didn't cheat. Ask Glenda. We didn't cheat. Now, you don't have to believe me, but you have to believe Glenda. She's a saint. And so, but there were times playing Pictionary, and you are my witness here, probably 3 or 4 times that Glenda and I would go first, and we would go all the way around the board, and they never got a turn. Never got a turn.
Yeah, but they'd have a clear piece of paper, and she'd draw a line on it, and they'd go, mural. That's it.
That was
Come on now.
That was one of the two. There was one where I drew a box and a tree real quick, and the first word out of Glenda's mouth was mural, and I said, that's it. And Kevin and Polly just about came unglued. Cheaters, you're cheaters. And we're like, we did not cheat. And the other one that I remember is I did kind of a just odd little, or it was actually Glenda drew this little odd little squiggle this way, and then an odd little thing on top of it. And I said, pagoda. And she said, that's it. And you and Polly, cheaters, you bunch of cheaters.
I would be sitting there going, now what exactly is Kubota? A pagoda?
Yeah.
It's a tractor. No. Anyway. But
we were great at it. So anyway, we go to New
Orleans. I had
to
use depth perception and everything in my drawing. It had to be,
Kevin's an artist.
I would just be, and
Kevin's an artist.
By the time was out, Polly couldn't figure out what I was doing because, it was...
Well, you're drawing everything 3D. I remember
you
you drawing a pipe one time, and to me, I draw a pipe and I go... and smoke coming out. Kevin would draw a 3-dimensional aspect thing of a speculative pipe from the 18th century. It's like, oh,
okay, let's get back
to the story. All right, so anyway, we go to New Orleans, and we decide we're going to let the girls pick 2 awesome restaurants, and that one night... Polly and I will pay for the meal, and one night, Kevin and Glenda will pay for the meal. Okay, so they picked 2 restaurants. One was Commander's Palace, which at that point was #1 restaurant in America. And then there was some new guy on the food thing.
Y'all may have heard of him.
And I didn't know who he was, but Polly and Glenda knew, and he would go bam.
What was it, Emerald?
Emerald,
something like
Emerald.
Yeah.
Emerald, and so... he had opened this restaurant in New Orleans. And so I remember telling Polly, I said, hey, we're going to Commander's Palace first night. Let's you and I pay for that one because it's bound to be more than whoever this guy is. It's the #1 restaurant in America. So she said, okay. So we do. And sure enough, it's like, and this is, think back, this is in the 1980s, right? And I remember it was like, $315, $320. And I mean, back in the 80s, right? Mm-hmm. And so, Polly and I went back to the room that night thinking, okay, we did the right thing here. And so the next night we go to Emerald's. And there's several things I remember about that night. One thing I remember is us sitting at the foretop, and I kind of didn't like this place because it was so loud. Right. Everything was new. It was all brand new, modern-looking art, kind of weird stuff, and it was loud in there. We're like screaming at each other.
Which is the polar opposite from Commanders.
Right.
Commanders was old Southern elegance with waiters that were,
Yep.
sweeping up crumbs around you, and it was just awesome.
And so the waiter at Emerald's comes up to us, and he says, Chef Emerald is in the restaurant tonight, and so we are offering a tasting menu. You can have one of some of everything that Chef Emerald cooks tonight, and it's just for a standard price. And so we all kind of looked at each other, and we're trying to not act like hicks, So
well, he kind of wrung his hands while he was talking, and he says the only thing that we would ask is that everybody at the table do the tasting menu.
Right.
Chefs.
That's right.
And so we're like,
okay.
Okay.
So there would be 4 people. There's four of us sitting there. There would be 4 people that would come up with a covered dish, and they would put them down in front of us, and they would look at each other, and they go, and they would lift them up. And it got to where it was these huge plates, and it got to where we were laughing when they lifted them up because there would be something the size of my thumbnail in the middle of this massive plate under this huge silver thing. And we got to laughing. But the other thing I remember is whatever that cheese was. Oh, my God.
They were named for different parishes in Louisiana. And, y'all, this is a nice restaurant. And, I mean, I had to scrape this out of my mouth. And I couldn't get to taste it.
It was like, remember Tom Hanks in Big rubbing his tongue? I mean, that to this day, I think that's the worst thing I've ever tasted. It was horrendous. So I remember that. But here is the main thing. All right, now, for those of you watching on video, I will act this out, okay? So the waiter comes to the table, right? Now, understand, I don't even know if we had any wine with dinner.
I don't think we did. I think,
right?
I think we were freaking. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So in any case, the waiter comes and he has the check and he says, "Who do I?" And Kevin goes like that, and so he puts the little tray thing, down in front of Kevin, and so Polly and Glenda and I are there, and Kevin does this. He opens up the little booklet, and his head is down. He's looking down at this thing, and he continues to look down. He ain't moving. I mean, his body's not moving. His head's not moving. He is still looking straight down.
Y'all, I'm reliving it right now.
And Polly and I kind of look at each other, and then we look at Glenda, and we look at Kevin, back at each other. Kevin has not moved. And he's holding that thing, and he's looking at it. And this goes on for like 90 seconds, which is like a long time. And so I kind of lean over the table, and I said, can I help you with that, buddy? And this is what Kevin did. Kevin still does not move his head, does not move any part of his body, and just one hand and one arm moves. And he hands that bill across the table to me. And as God is my witness, it was like a house payment. I mean, it was like, oh my God.
I could feel the blood rush from my head. I was like, and this, I was working shift work. This was not I'm going, well, I guess Alabama Power's not going to get paid this month.
I
was like,
yeah, it was a house payment.
We were shocked.
We were all like, do we have the money? Because I don't think we had credit cards. And I don't know if we had the cash between us. I mean, we were thinking, oh my God, we're going to have to sell our wives.
And what was really bad was that I'm sitting there looking at this, and I'm starting to get mad because I'm hungry.
Yeah, you're still hungry, and you had to eat the cheese.
Every entree was big as your thumb, and and it was my palate's not that sophisticated, so a chilled plate with chocolate and raisins melted on it. I can do that with a box of Raisinets on my dashboard. So this was really upsetting me. So anyway, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, but I forgot what we did, but we just like pooled our money and just got out of there.
Got out of there and went to Burger King and got something and went to the room and played board games.
Yeah, but Lord have mercy. And I remember the next day driving back to Mobile, and we stopped somewhere, and you came up to me and said, oh, buddy, if you want to take my shotgun and just hold it until I can pay you back. I said, what the crap are you talking about? I mean,
isn't that crazy?
But we were just, God, we were panicked, man. It was just,
Andy was, he was starting to see some success.
Yeah, I was just.
And the last thing that I ever wanted to do was to use my friendship to some kind of leverage to get something from Andy.
Oh, shoot.
So anyway.
Well, that meal, you didn't get nothing.
Before we go, I got a question,
okay.
And I know I'm putting you on the spot because this is all kind of, let's go.
Okay.
Over the span of our relationship, can you point to maybe one thing that you may have learned from me?
Dude, I can think of so many things that I learned from you. And one of my greatest ways of teaching Austin and Adam has been to explain to them something that you explained to me. And to be able to, because it's like, it wasn't just their dad saying it. This is what Uncle Kevin taught me. And so it carried so much weight there. I remember you talking to me one time about, and this sounds so basic, and I could go into details, but I remember you talking to me one time about honor, talking to me about character, talking to me about how honesty and character have to align. There's so many. But Kevin, you and I have had so many hours together of just talking.
That's right.
Do you remember the time we
driving?
You remember the time we decided we wanted to go and try to catch a trophy speckled trout, and we drove
South Florida.
Yeah, it's like 18 hours and spent one night in a cheap hotel and fished and then drove back. Right. But we talked the entire way and all the way back.
That's right.
And so, it says something when you're with somebody that the conversation never lags. But it also says something when you laugh together, you cry together. I told the boys just the other day, we were talking about dreams. And I hope you don't mind me sharing this, but I remember one time you telling me, you have counseled me as an adult. You've helped me through some of my hardest times. You've helped me through times when my business wasn't working. You've helped me through times my health wasn't working. And, you've been my parenting counselor, my marriage counselor. But I remember this time you telling me about a specific time that you were going through and that you just didn't even know what to do. And that, and it was, a couple or 3 years after Haywood had passed away. And you told me that you went back in the bedroom and you're just laying on the bed trying to think, and you fell asleep and just fell totally asleep. And that you had a dream while you were asleep that Haywood came in that bedroom, put his hand on your knee there, and kind of squeezed your leg and said, Kevin, everything is going to be all right. This is all going to be all right.
And I know people think that all that kind of stuff is hokey pokey, but I'll just tell you, I mean, it was. There was a peace after all that, and
right.
I don't.
But that's what you told me about you waking up with such a peace, and it was. And I remember hearing that story, and I've thought about that story a million times since, because I've always thought, well, how did God talk to people in the Bible, in their dreams?
Right.
He talked to Mary about the birth in a dream. The angel talked to her in a dream. Talked to Joseph in a dream. All these people, Jacob in a dream, and Daniel in a dream. And so we tend to think that kind of stuff can't happen now. But I think that if you have somebody, have a relationship like you and I do, where you can talk with each other, and there's an atmosphere of total trust, that you can find some things and find some wisdom, because that is one thing that's been great fun for me, is you have always given me perspective. You have always been, we've teased about it and said you were my conscience, but you've always given me perspective. You've always been that settling point for me. I mean, there have been times in my life where Polly said, you just need to go and see Kevin. Can you just call Kevin? Y'all just go somewhere, because she knew, around Kevin calms me down. So
we calm each other's spirit.
Yeah.
Now.
And you have been a great example for me. And I'm very grateful to you, Kev.
I appreciate you saying that.
Very grateful.
I know over the years, it would be impossible for me to communicate everything I've learned from you, not just from our interaction, but through the books and through seeing you on stage and seeing you on so many different.
I don't know. It's so much learning from me as you and I have.
Well, we
have explored stuff together.
That's right.
I mean, the stuff. The stuff that you have eventually heard me say on stage, or heard me or read that I said in the book, you and I already explored that in conversations. I mean, that is how I learn. I always ask God, help me to understand things that you want people to understand. And so you have been a great person to ask. You always ask the right questions. You can keep that topic fun. You can keep that topic, keep us after a topic. Even when it seems like, we've gotten kind of, that's all there is there, you would find another door, another avenue to go into something. And so that it's just been and I sound like we're both dying. I hope we're not.
Well, but we've still got a bunch more years to be each other's therapists.
Yeah, that's true.
And I can tell you without a doubt, the thing that you taught me that has literally opened doors, disarmed situations, and that smiling when you talk. Because if you remember me in the old days, I may sit at a restaurant and order my meal and never make eye contact with the waitress or waiter.
Right.
And it completely opened my eyes to a very you're positively reaching out with your smile to touch somebody else.
And now,
it's crazy.
You are truly one of the most popular people in this region. I mean, in
Well, I
Mobile.
appreciate you saying
Kevin
that.
has, and I'll just tell you this, and then we're through. You're through talking.
Okay,
right?
I'm
so
through talking.
You're through talking.
I'm done.
But
I'm going to take me something to drink.
Kevin works for Hargrove Engineering, and he's one of the managers there. And this is a massive firm, and I don't know how many thousands of employees they have. But Kevin is the only person who has been on the cover of their company magazine twice, and then to have Judson on the cover of it too last year.
And now Conrad just recently. So Conrad
I know
Pierce.
it. Isn't that great?
Conrad Pierce is in Just
Pierce.
Jones.
Oh my God! Yeah,
And
Conrad
so-
Pierce in Just Jones.
So Conrad, awesome guy.
Yeah.
And think a lot of him and his family. And so
Grandfather, Dr. Con, Jimmy the father, Conrad the son. I mean, that's it. Seeing generations like that have been parented with love and discipline and teaching self-discipline. It's amazing to see what happens.
well,
Thank you for being here, buddy.
it's my pleasure, and let's just keep on keeping on and keep loving on one another.
Yep, absolutely. I'm Andy Andrews, the professional noticer, harnessing common sense and wisdom to plow through challenges all the way to an answer for you. And I think that'll do it for this week. Get us out of here, Matthew. So, ladies and gentlemen, and to the boys and girls who aspire to become ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of another episode of The Professional Noticer. In a world where common sense has become a superpower, I am harnessing that tiny bit of mental energy I have for you, seeking wisdom, making observations, and endeavoring to answer tough questions in a way that will empower your family and your business. I'm Andy Andrews. Until next week, smile while you talk. Don't breathe anyone else's air. Keep that mask on. Make sure you have a positive answer to the question, hey, how's it going? And so, until next week, goodbye. This episode of The Professional Noticer was produced by Matt Limbert. The Noticer theme written and performed by Sugarcane Jane. Politically correct dictionary provided by Twinkle and Smoke of Beverly Hills. Additional financial consideration provided by lastyearsair.com. Well, friends and neighbors, the holiday season is always busy for the folks at lastyearsair.com. Every December, their factories are in full production mode, packaging that year's air until the calendar rolls over on January 1st, just like it did a little while back. It's what started in 1937 as a novelty gift has become a full-fledged industry, with demand continuing to increase for this unique product with each passing decade. This is truly rare air, otherwise known as antique oxygen, and some have found a brisk market for unique vintages. If you're still holding on to a bag of 2016, Chicago Cubs fans are forking out more than $50 for a single inhalation. For a Cubs fan, that breath is worth it. A reminder of what it was like in 2016 when they won their first World Series in 108 years. For the first time ever, in a January release, lastyearsair.com is making 2020 air available now. As always, it is packaged in Ziploc bags for the whole family or in new bubble wrap travel packs. Also, for the first time, lastyearsair.com has placed a warning label on a particular production run from a single year. It asks only that you be careful with 2020 air. Think of your family and loved ones. Yes, it is a great souvenir, but maybe it shouldn't be breathed. If terrorist organizations added 2020 air to their arsenal, the whole world could be at risk. The 2020 air has proven to be detrimental to your health, and so even a diluted mixture could lead to irreparable harm. Visit them online at lastyearsair.com and take a big breath of history.